The people of Black Pine Valley, Montana, believed that Samuel Graves was nothing more than a lonely old man waiting for his final days. At 68 years old, he lived alone on a weathered ranch surrounded by endless pine forests and rocky hills. His eyesight had been gone for nearly a decade, stolen by an explosion no one ever spoke about. Every morning he fed his horses, repaired old fences, and listened to the wind as if it carried stories only he could understand. Most people pitied him. Some laughed behind his back. Others simply forgot he existed. But none of them knew the truth. Miles away, 19-year-old Lily Carter sprinted through the forest, her lungs burning with every desperate breath. Rain poured from the dark sky, soaking her clothes as branches whipped across her face. Behind her echoed angry voices. There she is. Don't let her escape. 3 armed men pushed through the trees, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. They worked for Victor Kane, the richest businessman in the valley, and they had one order. Bring the girl back. Alive if possible. Dead if necessary. Lily stumbled over a fallen log and crashed hard onto the muddy ground. Pain shot through her ankle. She forced herself to stand, but before she could run again, one of the men stepped into the clearing, aiming a revolver directly at her. Game's over. Another man smiled coldly. You should have kept your mouth shut. Lily slowly raised her trembling hands. Then. A sharp whistle sliced through the night. The men looked around in confusion. What was that? Suddenly, a thick rope flew from the darkness, wrapping around one attacker's legs. He crashed face-first into the mud with a painful scream. Before anyone understood what had happened, another man was struck across the wrist by a long wooden staff. His gun flew into the bushes. The third attacker spun around wildly. Who's there? Silence. Only the sound of rain. Then a calm, deep voice echoed through the trees. You boys are making too much noise. Out of the darkness walked an elderly man wearing a worn cowboy hat and carrying a polished wooden cane. His cloudy white eyes stared into nothing. He was completely blind. The mercenaries burst into laughter. The old man's blind. This'll be easy. One of them charged forward with a knife. Samuel Graves never even looked at him. He simply tilted his head slightly, listening to the man's footsteps. At the exact moment the attacker lunged, Samuel stepped aside with impossible precision. His cane struck the man's ribs. Crack. The knife dropped instantly. Before the second attacker could fire his revolver, Samuel threw a handful of gravel toward him. The tiny stones hit his face. He instinctively closed his eyes. That single mistake was enough. Samuel moved faster than anyone expected from a man his age. His cane slammed into the man's wrist before spinning upward into his jaw. The gun fired harmlessly into the sky. The final mercenary froze. This isn't possible. Samuel slowly pointed his cane toward him. You have 5 seconds to leave my valley. The man didn't argue. He grabbed his injured partners, and within moments all 3 disappeared into the forest. Only then did Samuel kneel beside Lily. You hurt? She stared at him in disbelief. How did you do that? Samuel smiled faintly. When you lose your eyes, you learn to hear everything else. Lily hesitated before accepting his hand. I have nowhere to go. Samuel remained silent for a few seconds. Finally he nodded. My ranch is 2 miles north. You can stay until your ankle heals. The ranch sat on a quiet hill overlooking the valley. It was old but well maintained. Horses wandered peacefully across the fields while a loyal German shepherd greeted Samuel before sniffing Lily curiously. Inside the farmhouse, everything was perfectly organized. Every cup. Every tool. Every chair. Exactly where Samuel expected it to be. As Lily looked around, something immediately caught her attention. The walls weren't decorated with family photographs. Instead, they held old military maps, faded compasses, survival knives, and dozens of medals locked inside dusty glass cases. Samuel noticed her silence. "Don't touch those." His voice wasn't angry. It was protective. Later that evening, while Samuel prepared dinner with remarkable precision despite his blindness, Lily wandered down the hallway. She stopped outside a heavy steel door hidden behind an old bookshelf. A large iron lock secured it shut. "What is this room?" she asked. Samuel's expression changed instantly. For the first time since meeting him. He looked nervous. "Some doors," he said quietly, "should stay closed." Before Lily could ask another question, the sound of expensive SUV engines echoed across the valley. Several black vehicles rolled onto the ranch. Men in tailored suits stepped out first. Then came Victor Kane himself. The billionaire removed his sunglasses and smiled confidently. "Mr. Graves," he called. "I've come to make one final offer." Samuel slowly walked onto the porch. "I already gave you my answer." Victor chuckled. "I'll double the price." "No. Triple it." "No." Victor's smile disappeared. "Everyone has a price." Samuel tightened his grip on his wooden cane. "My land isn't for sale." The valley fell completely silent. Victor stared at the blind old rancher for several long seconds before climbing back into his SUV. As the convoy disappeared down the dirt road, he calmly turned to his chief mercenary, Cole Mercer. "If the old man won't sell." His eyes grew cold. "Then burn his ranch to the ground before sunrise." The valley fell into complete silence after Victor Kane's convoy disappeared into the darkness. Lily stood on the porch, watching the dust settle along the dirt road. "Do you think he'll come back?" she asked quietly. Samuel remained motionless, his face turned toward the wind. He never intended to leave. Almost as if the forest itself had answered him, the distant howl of coyotes echoed through the mountains. Samuel's expression hardened. "They're already here." Lily looked around in confusion. "I don't see anyone." "You don't have to." Samuel reached beneath the porch and pulled out an old lever. Somewhere deep inside the ranch, gears clicked into motion. Metal chains tightened. Hidden bells began hanging from invisible wires stretched across the property. The ranch had transformed into a fortress. Nearly an hour later. Four black pickup trucks rolled silently toward the ranch with their headlights switched off. Cole Mercer stepped out first, surrounded by nearly a dozen armed mercenaries. "Remember," he whispered. "Victor wants the old man gone." "And the girl?" Cole loaded his rifle. "No witnesses." The men spread across the property, moving carefully through the darkness. The first mercenary never even reached the fence. His boot caught a nearly invisible wire. A heavy log swung from the trees and smashed him to the ground. Another stepped forward to help. Snap! A hidden bear trap clamped around his ankle. His scream echoed through the valley. "What the hell?" Before anyone could react, a lantern suddenly exploded above them. The entire yard lit up. Samuel stood alone on the front porch, holding nothing except his wooden cane. His white eyes stared into the darkness. "You boys should have gone home." Cole smiled. "Kill him." Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through wooden fences and shattered windows. Yet Samuel had already vanished. The mercenaries searched frantically. He disappeared. A shadow moved behind them. Crack! One man collapsed after a precise strike to the neck. Another spun around, only to be kicked into a water trough. Panic spread through the attackers. How is he doing this? Samuel never stayed in one place for more than a second. He listened. Every footstep. Every breath. Every click of a safety being released. Each sound painted a picture inside his mind. By the time the surviving mercenaries reached their trucks, half of them were already unconscious. Cole realized they had underestimated the old rancher. Retreat. The engines roared to life as the convoy sped away into the night. For several long moments, everything became quiet again. Inside the farmhouse, Lily stared at Samuel in complete disbelief. "You knew they were coming." Samuel slowly placed his cane beside the fireplace. "I've been expecting them for years." "Who are you?" Samuel didn't answer. Instead, he walked into the kitchen as though the question had never been asked. Unable to control her curiosity any longer, Lily wandered downstairs while Samuel treated his bruised hands. At the end of the basement hallway stood the same heavy steel door she had seen earlier. This time, the lock was missing. She slowly pushed it open. The room beyond stole her breath. Rows of assault rifles rested inside secured cabinets. Shelves were filled with military radios, encrypted maps, survival equipment, explosives, and stacks of classified-looking documents. The walls displayed photographs of Samuel wearing different military uniforms across several decades. In one picture he stood beside elite soldiers. In another, foreign generals. There was even a faded newspaper clipping. "America's greatest tracker missing during classified operation." The photograph showed a much younger Samuel. Lily's heart raced. This can't be real. She picked up an old leather folder. Inside were mission reports covered with government seals. Every operation had one name signed at the bottom. Samuel Graves. Behind her, a calm voice spoke. "I told you some doors should stay closed." Lily slowly turned around. Samuel stood in the doorway. He wasn't angry. Only tired. "You were a soldier." Samuel gave a slow nod. "For 38 years. But these missions, they weren't ordinary." "No." He lowered himself into an old wooden chair. "I hunted terrorists, war criminals, men the government couldn't afford to let escape. My job wasn't to fight wars. My job was to end them." Silence filled the room. Lily finally understood. The blind rancher everyone believed was helpless had once been one of the most dangerous men alive. The following morning, Marshal Ethan Brooks quietly arrived at the ranch without his patrol car. "I came alone," he said. Samuel recognized his footsteps immediately. "What do you want?" Ethan removed his hat. "I've spent 6 months investigating Victor Kane." He unfolded several photographs. "They're poisoning the river." Lily looked closer. The pictures showed barrels of toxic waste being buried beneath the mountains. "There are dozens of dead ranches around the valley," Ethan continued. "Families forced to sell. Anyone who refused either disappeared, or died." Samuel remained silent. Then Ethan placed one final photograph on the table. Lily froze. It showed her parents standing beside a pickup truck only days before they died. "They discovered Victor's illegal mining operation," Ethan said quietly. "The crash that killed them." He looked directly at Lily. "Wasn't an accident." Tears filled Lily's eyes. "My parents were murdered." Ethan nodded. "We finally have enough evidence to expose Victor." Before anyone could speak again, Samuel suddenly lifted his head. His face turned toward the front door. "They're coming." Ethan frowned. "Who?" Samuel's expression became colder than ever. "This isn't another warning." He tightened his grip on his cane. "It's the beginning of a war." Far across the valley, Victor Kane stood inside his private office watching live drone footage of the ranch. Cole Mercer entered the room. The first team failed. Victor calmly poured himself a glass of whiskey. "Then send everyone." He turned toward the window, his voice completely emotionless. "I don't want the ranch. I want Samuel Graves buried beneath it." The first rays of dawn had barely touched the mountains when the peaceful valley erupted into chaos. More than 20 black armored vehicles rolled toward Samuel Graves' ranch, raising clouds of dust behind them. Mercenaries wearing tactical gear surrounded the property from every direction. Snipers climbed nearby hills while drones circled high above the ranch. Victor Kane had come prepared for war. Inside the farmhouse, Samuel calmly loaded an old hunting rifle. Lily tightened the straps of her backpack, now carrying the documents and photographs that proved Victor's crimes. Marshal Ethan checked the ammunition in his shotgun. "This is too many," Ethan admitted. Samuel smiled faintly. "They're making the same mistake again." "What mistake?" "They think they're hunting me." He slowly picked up his wooden cane. "When in reality, they've walked into my hunting ground." Outside, Cole Mercer raised his hand. "Move in." The mercenaries stormed the ranch from every direction. The first man kicked open the front gate. Boom! A hidden explosive buried beneath the dirt launched him backward. Another squad rushed toward the barn. The moment they entered, thick ropes dropped from the ceiling, trapping 2 men upside down while another stepped onto a pressure plate. A wall of heavy wooden beams swung across the room, knocking several attackers unconscious. Confusion spread through Victor's army. "Watch your step. There are traps everywhere." Meanwhile, Samuel moved silently through the smoke. Every movement was precise. Every bullet counted. Without wasting a single shot, he disabled weapon after weapon, forcing the mercenaries into complete panic. Cole realized brute force wasn't enough. "Burn the ranch." Flames quickly spread across the old wooden buildings. Smoke filled the sky. Lily watched in horror. "Samuel." The old rancher didn't even turn around. "Go." "What?" "Take the evidence. If Victor escapes today, everything we've fought for means nothing." Lily hesitated. She didn't want to leave him. But she finally understood. Samuel had never intended to survive this battle. With tears in her eyes, she climbed into Ethan's pickup truck. "I'll come back for you." Samuel smiled. "I know." The truck disappeared into the forest while Ethan drove toward the state police headquarters. Back at the ranch, the fire continued spreading. Cole finally found Samuel standing alone beside the burning barn. "So?" Cole laughed. "The legendary tracker. I expected someone bigger." Samuel rested both hands on his cane. "You still have time to leave." Cole threw his rifle aside. "I've wanted this fight for years." Without another word, he charged forward. The 2 men collided with incredible force. Despite his age, Samuel moved with astonishing speed. He sidestepped every punch, striking Cole's joints and ribs with perfect accuracy. But Cole was younger. Stronger. Eventually he tackled Samuel into the dirt. The cane flew several feet away. Cole pulled out a combat knife. "You finally slowed down, old man." Samuel smiled. "No. You did." Cole frowned. "What?" A faint clicking sound echoed beneath his boot. His eyes widened. "A pressure plate." Samuel rolled away. An instant later. Boom! The hidden charge exploded beneath Cole, throwing him across the field. The mercenary leader hit the ground and never moved again. At that exact moment, dozens of police vehicles surrounded Victor Kane's private estate. Lily had safely delivered every piece of evidence. State police officers uncovered secret financial records, toxic waste reports, surveillance videos, and contracts proving Victor had ordered murders, arson, and illegal land seizures for years. Victor watched the police arrive through his office window. "No. This can't be happening." He fled through a hidden tunnel beneath the mansion and escaped into the surrounding forest. But someone was already waiting. Samuel. Standing quietly among the trees. Victor's hands trembled as he aimed his pistol. "Stay back." Samuel remained calm. "For years you destroyed families. You poisoned rivers. You murdered innocent people." Victor fired wildly. Every shot missed. Samuel followed each gunshot by sound alone. When Victor emptied his pistol, silence returned. "You can't even see me," Victor shouted desperately. Samuel slowly stepped closer. "I don't need to." With one swift movement, Samuel struck Victor's wrist. The pistol fell into the leaves. Victor collapsed onto his knees. Moments later, dozens of state police officers surrounded the clearing. Victor Kane was arrested without another shot being fired. As they placed him into handcuffs, Lily arrived with Ethan. She looked at Samuel. "It's over." Samuel took one final look toward the smoke rising from his destroyed ranch. The place he had called home for nearly 20 years was gone. Yet for the first time in decades, he felt free. Several weeks later, Victor Kane was sentenced to life in prison. His mining company was shut down, and every family whose land had been stolen received compensation. Marshal Ethan Brooks was promoted to county sheriff. The valley slowly began to heal. One quiet morning, Lily stood beside a newly built cabin overlooking the mountains. Samuel handed her an old brass compass. "It guided me through every mission. Now it'll guide you." Lily smiled. "And what about you?" Samuel looked toward the endless horizon. "My war ended the day I met you." Together, they watched the sunrise over Black Pine Valley. The old soldier who had spent a lifetime hunting monsters had finally found something worth protecting instead of fighting for. Sometimes, the strongest heroes are not the ones who can see the farthest. They're the ones who never lose sight of what truly matters.